Greetings, members, one and all of the Salivation Nation. How central banks might be buying gold. Let's explore. You know, I have often wondered, and so has some of you, because you've asked me in the comments, where are these central banks buying their gold? It's been kind of a mystery. We hear about India, Russia, Turkey, and other nations accumulating more gold for their central banks, but where are they getting it from? Well, here's an article that was shared with me by Doctor Who that may give us a hint as to at least one way, of maybe several, that some of these central banks are buying gold. If you enjoy stories like this, I hope you will consider pressing that thumbs up button. It really does help the channel to get the word out. I think these videos are important to help educate and spread the word about precious metals out there. And if you haven't done so already, I hope you will consider subscribing. I'm going to be referencing an article here, again shared with me by Doctor Who, from Bloomberg, that gives us some indication of how, perhaps, gold is bought from central banks. Because in recent days, there has been a whale snapping up gold bullion, and they did it when we saw the dip in gold, when it went below $1,800 an ounce. And so, this is a scale of a purchase that has been made that is somewhat hidden, and it would point strongly towards a sovereign buyer. So we see spot gold bobbling around $1,800 an ounce. It has been like that since about mid-2020, save for when it spiked up above $2,050 in August of that year. But the stickiness of that level, particularly as fundamentals turn more bearish, suggests there's a big buyer somewhere in these waters, a huge whale. So we see that fluctuation in price of gold over that time through that level. It's been pretty amazing to see. Since breaking above the round number in mid-July 2020, the gold price dipped below it 19 times on a closing basis, only to regain its footing. In the past year, the modeled value of gold, based on a regression study that includes the dollar, real rates, and ETF holdings, dropped nearly 10%, yet the metal's price only fell around 2%. Clearly, there's a big buyer who considers the metal a long-term hold, and I think this is one reason why we don't see gold's price fluctuate and as volatile as silver, for instance. There's something to be said for something that is treasured. Usually if something is treasured, it's going to retain its value. This is why gold is not as volatile, because it does have industrial uses, yes, but it is not really consumed. The larger percent of gold that is in the marketplace is held either as jewelry or as a store of value in the form of bars, coins, and rounds. And there's a big buyer who's considering this metal as a long term. And by the way, you and I, as holders of bullion products such as you see here, well, we're accumulating it for long term as well. But there's a whale activity which shows up neither in ETF holdings nor in futures positioning, although we have seen an increase in ETF holdings in GLD, and I talked about that in a previous video as well. That would require a substantial buyer accumulating in size in the London over-the-counter market. Yet vault holdings reported by the London Bullion Market Association, which include both ETF and some central bank-owned metal, show only a fractional increase in the year through December 2021, from 307 million to 309 million troy ounces. That would suggest that whoever is buying is able to buy in scale, leave little footprint in the market, and then take delivery and store the metal in secure, invisible vaults. And that points strongly towards a sovereign buyer, and perhaps a sovereign buyer who really doesn't want it to be known what they're accumulating. Central banks normally declare to the International Monetary Fund the amounts of metal they have on their books, but there are precedents where this has been done with some delay. Between 2009 and 2015, for instance, China reported no change in holdings, only to reveal that it had bought 53 million ounces of metal over that period. And so, yes, that's something to think about, that perhaps that reporting will come later, and it strongly suggests to me that perhaps China and or Russia are accumulating more gold. And it makes sense, especially with the geopolitical tensions between both nations and the West in general, and the United States in particular, and with the dollar's hold on the world economy. It means that they are preparing themselves to try to divorce themselves from dependence on the dollar. And so that means that they're going to try to accumulate more of this metal here, gold. Gold is a metal that has certainly has no agenda. It is what it is, and it's something that these sovereign nations, including the United States, has on record, and they want to get more. However, the United States, I'm not so sure about, but nonetheless, could be one way that they're doing it, and kind of in a sneaky manner. It does not surprise me one bit. And by the way, domestically produced gold, well, is that reported to the IMF? It makes you wonder. My guess is probably not. We know that China mines gold, mines a lot of it, so they may be using the gold as a secret safe haven in order to protect itself against the West. And you know how gold is treasured in country by individuals in China, as well as other nations. Maybe not so much Russia, but Russia is certainly amassing more gold, especially since they need some sort of strength because they have a smaller economy. In fact, their economy is about the size of Italy's, and so they need some other protection. I think gold would provide that protection for them, and that's what it's about. It's about protecting. And if you're a central bank and you are worried about sanctions for whatever reason, well, then you are going to want to accumulate a little bit of gold in order to protect yourself. And and the thing is whether or not a sovereign nation has whether or not of what their motives are. I believe for us, it's a good motive to accumulate gold to protect ourselves against a falling dollar or any other currency. And it's certainly not nefarious for us to be able to accumulate this gold in order to protect ourselves, because we know where the dollar is going. But other nations have other reasons. It's not just about what the dollar is doing, but it's about sanctions and limitations put on financial transactions and the like that are done in the dollar. If nations can have gold as a wealth preservation tool, they have that backup, and that's important. And it should be important to the United States as well, as we have a lot more gold than any other nation in the world, but other nations are growing their coffers of gold, and we are holding the line. Sooner or later, they are going to catch up to us if we're not careful with the accumulation of gold. Keep in mind, we used to have a whole lot more gold than we have now. We sold a lot of it off. Nonetheless, I believe it's incumbent upon us to be able to accumulate more as private individuals, because gold, he who owns the gold, well, writes the rules, right? Well, you and I, when we accumulate gold, we're not necessarily making the rules, but we certainly are writing our own rule book for wealth, and that means that we are independent, growing independent from whatever the rules they make in the Federal Reserve to devalue the dollar. Devaluing the dollar. We're at the mercy of the dollar. And make no mistake, this is the currency. Cash is king. We utilize it and transact in it. And so, in a sense, we are a slave to it. But when we hold gold, we are protecting ourselves. And as the price of gold rises, which I believe it will in due course, then we will start to see our dollars, as they deteriorate, our wealth is preserved in this product, this gold that you see before you here. So there you go, folks. Interesting times indeed, and that may be one way, and a sneaky way, by the way, in order to hold gold. So I hope you enjoyed this video, and I want to thank Dr. Who again for sharing the information with me from the article from Bloomberg, and I want to extend a multitude of gratitude to you all for taking the time to watch this video, and to encourage you to please rate, share, comment, and subscribe.